guys, and welcome back to another episode of Immeasurables. Crazy to think that this is the second to last episode, but I can assure you that I'm very, very grateful of what this season has brought us and all the support I'm getting as well. So in case you didn't know, Immeasurables is trying to link that bridge between fashion and education. And if you stand for that same goal, I highly suggest you follow us on all of our things and all of our journey to make fashion a more educated place overall. So, with that, I'd like to bring you guys episode 8, which is High Fashion is Subjective. High is in parentheses, of course, because high fashion, as well as fashion itself, is subjective. At least that's what I believe, and you'll see through this episode. So, let's get started. This whole season, I've been having really bad writer's block and trying to figure out episodes and trying to push them out before the year ends. So, it's very much a time crunch, but it's going perfectly fine, as you can see. All episodes are on time and blah, blah, blah. But, I had another idea for this episode, but with the lovely inspiration with my boyfriend, after having a chat with him, we talked about how high fashion is subjective, and it basically is, which brought me to this episode. So to begin, I ask you, what do you think of when you hear high fashion, or when you hear fashion? What comes to mind? The first thing that comes to your mind might be the models, for example, Bella Hadid, Kendall Jenner, Gigi Hadid, or maybe the unknown ones like Mona, Yasmin, and Imam, for example. Is it Vogue magazine? Is it overpriced? Is it ugly? Is it over the top? Now hear me out. When what you see as overpriced, ugly, and over the top, I see as art. Now when you think of art, you may think of Van Gogh or Picasso or Rembrandt or just painting on a picture, like physical embodiment of someone's thought process and work, which is exactly what fashion is. Why on earth are we dissecting pieces of clothing? Why are we dissecting jeans? I think it's art. Now hear me out. For example, when you look at Alexander McQueen, if you don't know who he is, just do a simple Google and you could literally feel the emotion he's trying to portray on the screen or on the laptop or whatever you're watching on. By simple Google search, you can clearly see that his clothes aren't just for wearing. For example, like when I look at his art, when I first didn't know who he was, I always heard of Alexander McQueen, but because he was mentioned in songs and in pop culture, he was very notable in pop culture. So whenever I literally started researching his art and researching his style, I literally felt so emotional in a good way, not in a bad way. But his art gave such emotion and such power that watching his shows and feeding off of what he offered us just brings so much emotion to the viewer and the audience member that it's what art feels like to me as well. So he himself took inspiration from movies, art, music, and was most notable for challenging politics and the status quo in general. His work was very much controversial and opted for the shock factor. So I think he is an artist as much as Picasso is. They showcase their art in things like they portray, like clothes. For example, Picasso had I need to touch up on my art history, but Picasso had a blue period in which he was sad, in which he was kind of melancholy, and that's very much acceptable as Alexander McQueen went through very much emotional, mental illness, and that very much showed in his clothes as to what he was feeling in that exact moment. So maybe that pair of jeans you were looking at, designed by Alexander McQueen, went through so much emotion and so much effort put in by him that it basically is art. So next time you're watching a Louis Vuitton show or find something super absurd on social media and look at the price tag and see that it's $3,000, you can think of the Mona Lisa. How much would it cost to buy the Mona Lisa? I don't think it's on sale, but how much would it cost to buy the Mona Lisa? Same thing. So, as much as it is absurd to buy, well, to the average college student, how absurd it is to look at a Louis Vuitton bag and see that it's $3,000. But it's very much an art piece and very much a piece of art to look at and kind of think about the history of the piece and such. Fashion itself is subjective. As well as being unique and having your own style, fashion is dependent on emotions, social class, trends, and personal preference and dressing for your body type, which is height, body type, weight, etc. So if you spend a day people watching, for example, if you just sit outside for a while in your own neighborhood, well, they'll catch people off guard. But for example, if you sit in the mall and just admire what people are wearing, you could very much tell a lot about that person, which is a bad way. Don't go around judging people, but you could see, for example, if someone's wearing sweats and Crocs, you can either tell that they're sad or tired or stressed, or literally the opposite, a complete vessel of confidence and comfortableness. That's not a word. They're confident and comfortable in themselves, maybe, which is what I do. Like, for example, I go in the mall in sweats and a t-shirt, and I'm completely confident in myself. Maybe people perceive otherwise, but I think I'm confident in myself. So fashion really is a game of guessing, as well as it is an art piece, and as well as it is subjective. So that's all I've got this episode. Tune in for the final episode of Immeasurables. That's all I've got. Signing off.